through hell together. We spent 4 years. 4 years fighting that virus, and then another 4 fighting each other. It was chaos. But you all know what we're up against.
I need to speak to Caesar!
And I want you to know, it's not just about power, it's about giving us the hope to rebuild and reclaim the world we lost.
Damn, man, I think I need to call Mr. Blow Your Mind.
So let's see how this dawn of the Planet of the Apes is correlating to the times, right?
Yeah.
So according to the film that's coming out on May 23rd, 2014, this is the little, I don't know what they call this as, to giving you a synopsis as into the background of this movie. It says, a growing nation of genetically evolved apes led by Caesar is threatened by a band of human survivors of the devastating virus unleashed a decade earlier. They reach a fragile peace, but it proves short-lived, as both sides are both to the brink of a war that will determine who will emerge as Earth-dominant species. Now, just in that little heading title of they write on this movie, let's look at this. A growing nation of genetically evolved apes. Now, if you look historically, black and white people,
Yeah.
even in this day and age that we live right now, white people still refer to black people as what?
Apes. Monkeys.
Monkeys and apes, right?
Let me show you the way to go.
Okay, Rod Sterling is the cat. You ever seen an old school movie talking about the Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
He's the creator of that.
Okay.
Now he was the one that in that original 1968, he was the writer for that. And he was a hothead in Hollywood. And Rod Sterling is Jewish. Okay? And so when you say Jewish and then you talk about this monkey, because that's where it's coming from, because that goes back to that Genesis 9:25 through 27, where it talks about Ham turning black. I can, matter of fact,
Let me show you the way to go.
Alright, back in about like, there was a cat named Ariel. He was born like 1799, died about 1883. And he had wrote about the Negro. What is his ethnological status? Is he the progeny of Ham? Is he a descendant of Adam and Eve? Has he a soul, or is he a beast in God's nomenclature? What is the status that's fixed by God in creation? What is his relation to the white race? This was a book he wrote back in that time, 1800s. And this is what he says. He said, the intelligent will see at once that the question of slavery, either right or wrong, is not involved in this caption for examination, nor is that question discussed. The points are purely ethnological and biblical, and are to be settled alone by the Bible and by the concurrent history and by the facts existing outside of the Bible and of an admitted truth. We simply say in regards to ourselves in this day of partisan strife, religion and political, that we take no part in any such party strife, and that in many years since we cast our last vote, this much to prevent evil surmises. With the understood independence of all parties, we begin by saying that the errors and mistakes in understanding the true position of the Negro as God intended it to be in his order of creations are all traceable to and arise out of two assumptions. The learned men of the past and present age, the clergy and other, have assumed as true. One, that the Negro is a descendant of Ham, the youngest son of Noah. This is false and untrue. That the Negro is a descendant of a progeny of Adam and Eve. This is also false and untrue. This question, or rather these assumptions of the learned and unlearned world, are biblical and are to be settled by the Bible alone. Whether they be true or false and are outside of concurrent history, if these questions, or rather these assumptions of the learned and unlearned world, are biblical and are to be settled by the Bible alone, whether they be true or false and by outside concurrent history, and a fact known to exist and admitted to be true by the intelligent, and as they may serve to elucidate any statement or account given in the Bible. We shall have frequent use of the term logic of facts, and now explain what we mean by it. It is this: if one sees another with a gun in his hand, and that he shoots a man and kills him, and the bullet is found afterward in the dead man's body, that although we did not see the bullet put into the gun, yet we know by this logic of facts that it was the gun. It is the strongest evidence of which is true of any testimony that can be afforded or offered. It will be admitted by all and contradicted by none that we now have existing on earth two races of men, the white and the black. We beg here to remind our readers that when they see the word men or man italicized, we do not use it as applying to Adam and his race, but we may sometimes use these words in general and accepted sense of them, but it is only for the purpose of getting before the minds of our readers the proposition of the learned of this age exactly as they would wish them to be stated. We will now describe ethnologically the prominent characteristics and differences of these two races as we now find them. The white race had long straight hair, high foreheads, high noses, thin lips, and white skin. The olive and sunburnt colors where the other characteristics are found belong equally to the white races. The Negro or black race are woolly and kinky-headed, low forehead, flat noses, thick lip, and have a black skin. This description of the two races is, though not all their differences, full enough for the fair discussion of their respective station in God's order of creation, and will be admitted to be just and true as far as it goes by all candid and learned men. Therefore, the reader will be observed that when either of the terms white, black, or Negro is used, referring to race, what we refer to one on the other as the case may be, as it here sets forth and described in the two races. In God's nomenclature of the creation, his order stands thus: 1. Birds, 2. Fowls, 3. Creeping things, 4. Cattle, 5. Beasts, 6. Adam and Eve. We shall use this, but without any intended disparagement to any, and as if the best and highest authority. Before proceeding with the examination of the subject involved in the caption of this paper, we will for a moment notice the prevailing errors now existing in our strength and held by the clergy and many learned men to be true, which are: 1. Ham's name, which they allege in Hebrew means black. The curse denounced against him, that a servant of servant should be unto his brethren, and that curse was denounced against Ham, for this accidental seeing of his father's Noah's naked. That this curse was to do and did change him, so that instead of being long straight hair, high forehead, high nose, thin lips, and white skin, as they was and his brother Shem Japheth was, from that day forth to be kinky-headed, low forehead, thick lip, and black skin, and that his name and this curse affect all this. And truly, to answer this assumption, it must have done so, or the case would not fit the Negro as we now find him. And they adduced in proof that Ham name in Hebrew, Cam, which means black, the present color of the Negro, and that therefore Ham is the progenitor of the black race. They seem to forget, or rather they ignore the fact that the Bible nowhere says that such a curse, or that any curse whatever, was denounced against Ham by his father Noah. But that this curse was whatever it carried with it was hurled at Canaan, the youngest son of Ham. But it is of little consequence of the settlement of these great questions, which was intended whether Ham of his youngest son Canaan. But if it be of any value in supporting this theory, this meaning of Ham name in Hebrew, in designating his color to be black, and black it must be, to answer the color of the Negro, then the names of Shem and Japheth should be of equal value in determining their color. For each of the brothers received their respective names 100 years or more before the flood, and were all the children of the same father and the same mother. Now, if Shem and Japheth names do not describe their color, which they do not, upon what principle, logical philosophy, or grammar can Ham name determine his color? How many days of this days who are they called black, white, brown, and olive, all of whom are white, and without the slightest suspicion that the name indicated the color of their respective owners? It is not strange that an intelligent and learned men should be compelled to rely on such pluralities as arguments in truly supporting such tremendous conclusion. But they say it was with his name in conjunction with the curse that made him and his descendant the Negro what we find on earth. It is an axiom and logic that which is not the constituent that can be to the constituent. We have seen that making of Ham a Negro is not in the same which in one of the constitutes. Now let us see if in the other constitutes the curse. Now the curse and name change Ham. If the theory be true, from a white man to a black Negro, if the curse were capable of effecting such results, it is to be found in the word curse, and not in the words that a servant of a servant should be, and that his descendants could and readily be servants, white and black. He was already white, and no necessity to make him black to be a servant. If this effect on Ham is to be found in the word curse, it would be then necessary for the advocate of this assumption to show that such were the usual results. Whenever the word was used, for unless such were its common effect, when used by God himself, by men of God, by patriots, and by the prophets, then we ask on what grounds, if any, there be, if there was an assert that it did produce this effect in this instance. By Noah, on Ham and his descendants. We do not question or doubt that Canaan was denouncing the curse pronounced by Noah, that he should be a servant of servants. But whether Ham or Canaan alone is meant is not material for the question and issue, except in this view. But the advocates of such being it effects must show that such at least was it effects previous to and after Noah used it, and if they fail in this, that necessarily this part of the argument is also a total failure. Let us look into the Bible. God's curse our first parents. Did this curse kink their hair, flatten their skull, blacken their skin, and flatten their nose? If they did, Noah was sadly mistaken, and these gentlemen too, in supposing that if Noah's curse that accomplished all this, for it was already done for the whole race, and long before by God himself. God cursed the serpent. Did the curse produce the effect of him? He cursed Cain. Did it affect his skin, his hair, his forehead, his nose, his lips? These curses were all pronounced by God himself and produced no such effects. But we produce and take up the holy men of God, the patriots and prophets, and see what their curses produce. Did the curse of Jacob produce the effect of Simeon and Levi? Did it produce this effect on the man who would have the graven image? Did it produce this effect on the man who would rebuild Jericho? Did it produce the effect on those who make it the blind to wander out of the way? Did it produce this effect on those who perverted the judgment of the stranger, the fathers, and the widow? Cumulus alice, it did not. But it did produce the effect in these cases. Then when we read that Christ died to redeem us from the curse, are we to understand that we died to be redeemed from this kinky head, flat nose, thick lips, and a black skin? But such curses never have produced such effects. When produced by God, the patriots, by prophets, or by any holy man of God before or since, then we inquire to know of what principle or interpretation, grammar or logic it is that it can be so mean in this case of Noah. There are no words in the curse that express or imply such effects. Then in the absence of all such effects, follow such curses, and as they are narrated in the Bible, whether pronounced by God or man, and there being nothing in the language besides to sustain it, and if true, Ham posterity must show now as a trustful witness from their own day, back to the flood of Ham, and which can be done. And if this cannot be done, then all arguments and assertions based on such assumption that Ham was the father of the Negro or black race are false. And if false, then the Negro is in no sense the descendant of Ham, and therefore he must have been in the ark. And as he was not one of Noah's family, that he must have entered in some capacity or relation to the other beasts or cattle. For that he did enter the ark is plain from the fact that he is now here and not of the family or progeny of Ham. And no one has ever suspicioned that Shem or Japheth of being the father of the Negro. Therefore he must have come out of the ark, and he could not have come out unless he had previously entered it. And if he entered it, that he must have exited before the flood, and that too just such Negroes as we have now, and consequently not as a descendant of Adam and Eve, and as not the progeny of Adam and Eve, that he inevitably a beast, and as such entered the ark through having the form of man, and man is he being so named by Adam. Such is the logic, and such as the conclusion to whether the premises lead, if legitimately carried out, and by which it is plainly seen that the position assumed by the learned of the present and past ages, that the present Negroes are descendants of Ham, and were made so by his name or by the curse of his father, is false in fact, and but unwarranted assumptions at best. But while the conclusion is inevitable, it is also revealed to us another sad fact, that the good men of our own race, the white, though learned and philosophic, exhibit a weakness, alas, too common in our day, that anything they wish to believe or think will be popular. That is very easy to convert the greatest improbability into the best grounds of their faith. The word used by God, used by the patriots and the prophets, and the same word used by Noah. If the word thus used by God and by holy men did not produce the effect as it is charged by these men, how can the same word, when used by Noah, do it? And yet, on these assumptions, the faith of more than half the world seems to be now based. To expose these cobweb fabrics, called by some reason on this subject as Christian philanthropy by others, in which are involved such tremendous conclusion for weal or for woe, or for large a portion of the bite creation, that we feel like apologizing to our readers for answering such learned ignorance, blindness, or weakness. But the meaning of Ham in Hebrew is not primarily black. Its primary meaning is sunburnt, swarthy, dark, black, and its most unusual meaning. Now, what did he say? He said that, now this is a dude in the 1800s who wrote a book talking about the Negro and what is his ethnological status in God's nomenclature. He said there's no way that Adam and Eve could have had Ham and Ham is black. So what he's saying is that the Negro came in as a beast. So don't we see the perpetualness of what has been said, going back to using this written, and we don't know how many other have been written, that the black man or the black people have been looked upon as beasts. And so when you make a movie based on the Planet of the Apes, this is the message that has been sent. This is what they've been writing from 1968 to 2014. And so they're telling that there's something in these beasts that is rising, that is making them, that's going to war with us. So this title of this movie is stating already, a growing nation of genetically evolved apes. Black people are considered in the white mind, the white psyche, as apes.
Yeah.
So you said genetically evolved apes. So basically this is like black people.
Okay.
Who's going to be led by Caesar. Caesar means emperor, tyrant, a dictator, somebody of power. By a band who is threatened by a band of human survivors. In the case of these humans, when we look at the history of the Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes is about European people, and it's about some astronauts, right?
Yeah.
Supposedly had crashed and landed on this so-called strange planet in a distant future, right? In which they stumble upon a society in which apes, they say have evolved into creatures with human-like intelligence and speech.
Okay.
Huh? These apes have assumed the role of the dominant species, and humans are mute creatures wearing animal skins. So when you see that, okay, these astronauts, these people who's supposed to be coming from some other planet, huh? And they talking about this is something that's supposed. Now this is back when they originally made the Planet of the Apes in 1968.
Yeah.
They're talking about something in the future, a distant future, that they stumbled upon some apes who have evolved. If you understand right now, black consciousness is rising,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Black people are starting to wake up to a reality and starting to delve into information and learning and becoming and severing these bonds and ties that have been holding us down for so long. It's like going back to the Willie Lynch letter, and it talked about how the perpetualness of this so-called dynamic that they put upon the people could last for up to hundreds and maybe 1,000 years. But if you look at the time that it was done, right? It was in the year of, it's not 1,000, it says for 300 years, right? So it was like in 1712 is according to what had been written. It said in 1712. So if you do 300 years from 1712, we at 2012, right?
Yeah.
So isn't it ironic that if we take the correlation between what happened that was said in the Willie Lynch letter and look at the movie that they came up with, the Planet of the Apes in 2011,
Yeah.
that was called Rise of the Planet of the Apes, right?
Yeah.
It was called Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Now, if we go back in the chronology of the history of all the titles that's been used, it started off with back in 68 when they say beneath the planet of the apes. They beneath, huh? So, what does beneath mean? When they say escape from the planet of the apes, then it was conquest of the planet of the apes. Then it was battle for the planet of the apes. Then we come to what we talking about now, which is rise of the Planet of Apes. And now, in May 23rd, 2014, you're going to come off dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And the image is a monkey or gorilla or ape with a gun in his hand raised in the air.
Yeah.
And so, according to this, it says that these apes are threatened by a band of human survivors. Now, in the case, and I'm going back to, these humans are supposed to be, remember, because the original Planet of the Apes has Charlton Heston, The white guys, the white people were on this planet, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's correlate and look at Charlton Heston and look at the roles he played before that. The most dominant role that Charlton Heston ever played is what? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
You ever seen the movie 10 Commandments?
Yeah.
He played who?
Play Moses?
He played Moses. Huh? He played Moses. Even when he was in the NRA and he was the spokesmodel for them with his gun in his hand, well, they take it from my cold, dead hands. Huh? That was his words, from my cold, dead hands. Right? Now here's the same. This is an actor.
Yeah.
But somehow playing a role amongst these people. And he's more than just an actor. He's an activist, a person in reality promoting, okay, a certain institution that he understands why this has to be. We have to keep ourselves armed.
Yeah. So
do these Planet of the Apes have the metaphysicals talking about, as it started in the beginning when it said that when these astronauts had crashed on the strange planet, stumbled upon a society in which the apes have evolved into creatures human-like with intelligence and speech and have assumed the role of dominant species, right?
yeah.
And they become underneath them, as that talked about beneath them. When white people were underneath black people, when we had them as Circassians and slaves, when they were the slaves up in Europe, in Germany, A lot of people ain't never seen that on the map.
Nobody knows
The
about
land was
that.
called slave. This is where you get the word slave from. S-C-L-A-V-E, slave, Slav. They try to say it was only just Slavic people. No, that was all of them in this one location when they used to be beneath us.
Let me show you where to go.
See, see, white people will never admit the fact that they were beneath black people.
Yeah.
This is their problem. See, so they subliminally, when you make a movie about Planet of the Apes, how can a planet be with just apes on it? Apes is not the, when you're talking about in the so-called what would they call, what is the title they call chimpanzees, monkeys, and gorillas? So when you say orangutan, when you say chimpanzee, and you say gorilla, they use those terms. If I keep reading in there, I will show you where they use the terms are applying to ethnicities and race. Because when they talk about evolution, when they talk about Darwinism, okay? So when they came back later, when they started talking about this evolution, they talking about evolving from the so-called monkey and evolving to the caveman. Okay? Who do you think they talking about the original monkey or gorilla was? That's subliminally saying black people.
Yes.
Without saying black people. And black people having a, and then so you got black people who sit here and going with this evolution theory, right? Come out, you hear people saying, well, I'm atheist and I don't believe, and I believe through evolution. Well, you just going with that nonsense that white people came up with by saying that they are the masterpiece that evolved out of what it originally was. We became what they were on all fours. We were the upright man, and with more intelligence and brains. So they say you derive out of the original gorilla, monkey, because they say the gorilla is the Negro, the orangutan would be like your Asian, and the white man is the chimpanzee. And so when you look at the monkeys, the chimpanzee is supposed to be the most smartest, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. So the gorilla is just more brute and physical.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying? And so here's this cat who wrote a book back in the 1800s that was explaining this psychology of the white mind, the white psyche of the time when they were beneath us.
Nobody talking about that.
Now they come up with the new one after that called Escaped. Now that's what ended up happening when you read in history, when they're coming down upon everybody, because they escaped out of the being beneath the people who had them in bondage and slavery. And then they went around the world doing what? Conquering. The conquest.
Damn.
Huh? Then we was sitting there and they conquered. Huh? They went around the world talking about exploring. Exploring with Christopher Columbus and all this nonsense. Talking about exploring and killing our people. And that was during the battles. And then here we have been battling all this time after they done conquered and the conquest of them. We've been battling them all this time.
Yeah.
Now the planet has shifted. We have quickened into a new energy. We're in a new dawning era. It's called the Aquarius era. It is the, if you look at the symbol of the air of Aquarius and pouring the water means of information. We're in the information age. And now black people are becoming enlightened.
Yeah.
We're rising in consciousness.
Yeah.
So they came in 2011 with the rise of the Planet of the Apes. They're rising up. Now they said, we on the dawn. We on the dawn. We on the brink of them reestablishing themselves. Because everything that we have tried to suppress, everything that we tried to keep them from knowing, at those times when their so-called ancestors wrote everything, they told everything, because at that time, black people couldn't read.
Yeah.
It was against the law for you to read. It was against the law for you to know. They would kill you, right? And this is all, some of the movies that they had already portrayed. If you read, they were castrating you, cutting off your foot, hanging you, right?
Yeah,
teaching.
I'm gonna start thinking how that in that movie.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let's look at how these titles are portraying, and then in that same heading in these movies and these titles that they talk about futuristic. From 68, they're talking about futuristic at a time that would come in the future. And they just kept continuing with it because they know the time.
Yeah.
Everybody knows something is going on in the world. Something is happening. Something is shifting. Some energy. And black people are starting to trying to become more aware, conscious, and educated, and learning, and trying to sever off the ties and the bonds that been holding us for how long? And here they're making a symbolic movie about this dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
It's a whole message between the from the first one to the last one.
Fear of a black